Hello everyone. Today we're going to discuss vision, and we're going to kick things off with a question. Which two of the following organs do you associate with vision? The ears, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the brain, or the hands? If you said both the eyes and the brain, you'd be correct. These two organs work together to make sense of what you see. Let's hone in on the eyes. Light first enters the eye through the cornea. It serves to focus light on the retina so that you see a clear image, a sharp image, instead of a blurry one. Light then travels through the pupil, the black portion of the eye shown here. The colored ring surrounding the pupil is known as the iris. The two work together to control how much light enters the eye. In a normally lit room, your pupils will have a diameter between 2 and 5 millimeters. If you're in a bright room, however, your pupils will constrict so that less light is allowed in. If you're in a dimly lit room, the opposite will occur. Your pupils will dilate, they'll enlarge. From the cornea to the pupil, light travels to the lens. The lens serves to further focus light onto the retina. It also allows us to see objects that are both near and far from us. The muscles surrounding the lens are known as the ciliary muscles. They control its curvature. The more curved the lens, the easier it is to see near objects, and the flatter the lens, the easier it is to see far away objects. Finally, light lands on the thin layer of tissue located at the back of the eye, on the retina. The retina consists of 3 layers of cells: photoreceptors, bipolar cells, and ganglion cells. Let's move through these one by one. Photoreceptors are light-sensitive cells that exist in the first layer of the retina. There are 2 types, rods and cones, and there are 3 main differences between the two. First of all, rods are not sensitive to color. They essentially see in black and white. Cones, on the other hand, are key for color vision. There are 3 types: those that respond to short wavelengths of light, blue light, those that respond to medium wavelengths of light, green light, and those that respond to long wavelengths of light, red light. Next up, rods are sensitive to light. They don't need bright light to function and actually work best in the dark. They're key for our night vision. Cones, on the other hand, are not sensitive to light and need this bright light to function. Finally, rods are not detail-oriented and are concentrated on the periphery of the retina. That's why it's hard to see a detailed image from the sides of your eyeballs. Cones, on the other hand, are detail-oriented and are concentrated in the fovea, the central portion of the retina that is critical for our visual acuity. From this layer of photoreceptors, information travels to the bipolar cells. These are called bipolar cells as they literally have 2 poles. They consist of 2 axons branching out from a single cell body. One axon extends towards the previous layer of photoreceptors, while the other extends towards the 3rd layer of cells, the layer of the ganglion cells. There are only 1.5 million ganglion cells in the retina, but there are over 100 million photoreceptors. Hence, there are roughly 100 rods and cones that connect to each ganglion cell. These ganglion cells each respond to a certain portion of space, known as their receptive field. The receptive fields of all of these ganglion cells work together to make up our visual space. All of this information then leaves the back of the eye via the optic nerve. Before we get to vision in the brain, however, let's review vision in the eye. Which pair of organs serves to focus light? A, the cornea and the pupil. B, the pupil and the iris. C, the cornea and the lens. Or D, the lens and the retina. If you said C, the cornea and the lens, you'd be correct. Next up, which pair of organs serves to control the amount of light allowed to enter the eye? A, the cornea and the pupil, B, the pupil and the iris, C, the cornea and the lens, or D, the lens and the retina. If you said B, the pupil and the iris, you'd be correct. And finally, which of the following statements is false? A, cones are key for color vision. B, rods are key for night vision. C, cones need bright light to function. Or D, the fovea consists entirely of rods. If you said D, you'd be correct. We know that the fovea consists entirely of cones. Let's get back to it. In the opening slide, we said that our eyes and brain work together to make sense of what we see. How does that work? Well, the eyes help to collect visual information, and the brain helps us to interpret it. For example, images on the retina are inverted, but we perceive items in our visual field as right side up. You have your brain to thank for that interpretation. While visual information may take a number of paths from the eyes to the brain, we're going to focus in on one known as the geniculostriate pathway. In this pathway, visual information leaves the back of the eye via the optic nerve. These optic nerve fibers then cross in the optic chiasm before continuing down the optic tract on the way to the lateral geniculate nucleus, a portion of the thalamus. From here, the information travels to the primary visual cortex at the back of the brain. Now, you might be wondering why this pathway is known as the geniculostriate pathway. Well, it's because it includes the lateral geniculate nucleus and the striate cortex. Let's go through it a little more slowly. Information from both the left and right visual fields, both pink and blue information, enters both eyes. The information then leaves the eye through the optic nerve, and these fibers cross in the optic chiasm. They then continue down the optic tract towards the LGN. What is the significance of this crossing? Well, it means that information from the right side of space, pink information, is processed in the left LGN, while information from the left side of space, blue information, is processed in the right LGN. Do note, however, that both eyes receive information from both sides of space. Let's review that. Which of the following statements is false? A, the left eye only receives information from the left visual field. B, the right eye receives information from both visual fields. C, the left LGN processes information from the right visual field. Or D, the left LGN processes information from the left visual field. If you said A, you'd be correct. Both eyes receive information from both visual fields. Now, the LGN. The LGN consists of 6 layers. The first 2 or bottom 2 layers are known as the magnocellular layers. The neurons here have large cell bodies and respond to large portions of space. They're concerned with the perception of movement. The next 4 layers, the top 4 layers, are known as the parvocellular layers. Their neurons contain small cell bodies and have small receptive fields. These cells are concerned with the perception of color. From the LGN, information travels directly to V1 at the back of the brain. Information does not cross from the LGN to the primary visual cortex. Hence, information from the right visual field still goes to left V1, while information from the left visual field goes to right V1. Information in V1, however, is also flipped top to bottom. So information from the top half of space goes to the bottom half of V1, and vice versa. The calcarine sulcus helps us define what is the top and bottom half of V1. For our final question, I ask, which of the following statements is false? A. Layers 1 and 2 of the LGN are concerned with movement. B. Layers 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the LGN are concerned with color. C. The calcarine sulcus divides the top and bottom halves of V1. Or D. The visual pathway between the LGN and V1 is crossed. If you said D, you'd be correct. That's all for today. Thanks for listening. Bye.